we can love ourselves just the way we are right now. In fact, we can just be 100% okay with this version of us right now. And as long as we exist in a body, in space and time, we're going to have a part of us that's always growing. And so the two of them can coexist. And now it's, how can I grow loving myself? How can I actually grow because I love myself? How can I pursue this next version of self because I love myself? Like mic drop.
Right? We're done. We're done.
Over.
You know, it's been an interesting process as I've evolved into like owning this speaker and being able to own that, okay, it's okay for me to dream about being on a big stage. And I've really had to break down that good girl mentality because it's so much at odds. And I still have to like really, like, as I envision this dream and being on stage, it's almost like, I don't even know how to, it's almost like little deeper and deeper layers are like crackling within me to get me there.
Yeah.
And it's like, not that who I am today is bad, but I'm constantly evolving. I just wrote a newsletter talking about how life is like a video game. We're constantly leveling up. We get through and I'm not a video game person at all.
Neither am I, but I love this analogy. Keep going.
Right? So it's like we're on one level and we have all these challenges and these quests and these different things, and then eventually we level up to the next level. And then we do all the challenges and then we level up and we level up. And so with each level, we're starting to set a new standard for ourselves. And we're starting to, and so it's like, we are absolutely perfect where we are right now, and we get to keep growing. And it's a never-ending video game, which can sound exhausting, but it's also super exciting.
It is. And you know, one of the things I love about this analogy is like every time we level up, it's like, you know, we get to the next level and the first thing that happens is you die instantly. Mm-hmm. Like you just don't have like the skills on the next level yet. Yeah. You're a beginner again. You're a baby again. You're right at square one again. And so a lot of times we see that as defeat. Yeah. You know, where it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not in alignment. I'm not whatever we would say, when the truth couldn't be more opposite. Yeah. It's like we're now just learning new skills as a new version of ourselves as we attempt and work towards a new dream. Yeah. And that's so much a part of the process. And I think the other thing that I really love about this analogy that you were talking about is that when we actually start to like lean into that and start to dream and become bigger, you know, we have to assume a different identity. We have to start to question who we are as this next layer. You and I were talking before this about U Squared, and this is a book by Price Pritchett. And in that book, he talks about how all of the tools and the habits and all of the good things that we've had that have brought us to where we are right now, if we're going into the next level of ourselves, some of the things that have worked for us in the past might not work for us going forward. And so sometimes we have to sit down and actually question, like, what am I carrying? And if we look at the parietal principle, which talks about the 80% producing 20% of our results and 20% producing 80% of our results, a lot of times I think we don't know what that 20% is. But as we level up, some of the things that were the 20% before, if we're following me, they become the 80%. Mm-hmm. We actually have to shed layers of identity and layers of conditioning and layers of, you know, things that have actually been so good for us as we grow, so that we can fully embody that next layer of ourselves, that next version.
I love that.
It's like it's a never ending journey.
Yeah.
Never ending.
It takes a lot of intention to do that, because it's like you feel like, okay, I can breathe again. And then when you're someone who wants to and chooses to constantly be growing and becoming a better version of ourselves, it's like you can breathe and then we move to the next. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to stay in one place.
No, I think that's why I like surrounding myself with people like you, is because there isn't, as long as we're alive and we're breathing, we're growing. And if we've chosen not to grow, it means that we're accepting where we are, and we're also putting limitations on who we can become. And that's just something I'm not about anymore. It's not something that speaks to me anymore. And so it's nice to have reflection in the people around us, or to seek out people who are willing to grow and willing to challenge their limitations, so that we can see that mirror, and we can say, oh yeah, me choosing that next version of myself, me choosing to grow, is actually, that is accepted here, that's normalized here, because a lot of the world is telling us to stay the same, and it's telling us that there's something lacking, and telling us that there's something wrong with us, when in fact the opposite couldn't be more true. We are perfect just the way we are. And what you said about, because a lot of people will come to me and say, oh, how do you balance that contradiction of loving yourself the way that you are right now, and also having a vision or wanting to grow, wanting to be more confident, say, or wanting to be to recreate a new version of ourselves. Like, doesn't that have conflict with who I am? I don't want to hate myself. I don't want to upset my apple cart. And so I feel like this, like recognizing that it's a yes and, recognizing that we can love ourselves just the way we are right now. In fact, we can just be 100% okay with this version of us right now, right here, right now. And we're growing. And as long as we exist in a body, in space and time, we're going to have a part of us that's always growing. And so the two of them can coexist. And now it's more this conversation of, how can I grow loving myself? How can I actually grow because I love myself? How can I pursue this next version of self because I love myself? Not because there's something wrong with me. Like, could we just do away with that part of the conversation?
Right. There's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing.
At all.
Like, mic drop.
Right? We're done. We're done.
Over. No, seriously.
Well, and I've had a few clients, and often over the years, but a couple lately, who were waiting to work with me until they lose a bit of weight. And I had one client, she emailed me after we did the style foundations and then the shopping. And she emailed me after, and she's like, I waited 5 years to work with you, being like, I need to lose the weight first. And she's like, I just drove home feeling so good about myself, realizing I don't have to change. And I can feel really good, and I can look really good in my clothes, exactly how I am right now. And I started to cry as I was reading this, because it's what we were just talking about, learning you can love yourself right now. And guess what her doing that has done? I'm guessing, I haven't talked to her since, but it's expanded something in her. So now she's going to love herself as she is right now, and dream about the next. Dream about that next version of herself. What does that next part of life? And you can do both.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I feel like that really brings together this idea that, we can be waiting a long time for the thing that we want, because we think somehow we're not ready. Like, we could take that message, that same idea and concept, and put that into almost anything in our life. And what I'm realizing is that the limits that we have are truly self-imposed. We look at the things going on around us. We look at the people around us and what they're accepting as normal in their lives. And somehow we feel like we need to be like that. When 99% of those people are also wishing that they had the guts to go and do the thing that they would love to do. And it's like, that's not the mirror we want anymore. And truly, the limits are self-imposed. As soon as we entertain a new idea, new realities open up for us, new possibilities. And it sounds like that's exactly what your client experienced, where it's like, now what else is possible? What more?
Yeah.
Now that I'm open to that.
Right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes one of the things that limits us, and I know I've been guilty about this too, is the worry about what someone else will think. What if I end up on stage and there's people in my life who think like, oh, she's too big for her britches, or she's this, or she's that. We let other people's views of ourselves limit what we do. Number one, oftentimes what we think other people think of us is on us, not on them.
Okay.
Number two is, like you said, is that they're ready for some expansion. And by you stepping into who you are and owning who you are, suddenly you're giving them permission. And you're not responsible for how people respond. They're either going to run away because they're not ready, or they're going to be there and they're going to lift you up. And, you know, for me, one of the things in speaking was I had this assumption that people would be like, who do you think you are, Shelby?
Right.
Like, you don't have anything to say. And then when I actually looked at the reality of that, I'm like, okay, who in my life would actually say that to me?
Right.
Nobody.
100%. And if there were people in life who were close to you who would shoot you down or not support you, then we have to ask the question, why in the world are we giving their opinion weight?
Yeah.
Why are we allowing that opinion to dictate how we show up? Like, is that really the person whose energy we want to focus on right now? And it's becoming clearer and clearer that, like, that's where we need to pull our energy away from and start focusing it on the people who 100% support us, whether we fall flat on our faces or whether we are insanely successful. We want to really look at where we're giving weight with our opinion and what we're letting influence us in terms of the actions that we're taking in life.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I see you, you know, stepping into your power, and every time you get to the edge of your comfort zone, you're just looking over that edge saying, what's next? Like, what more? And that is something that I want to normalize that as part of the stepping into our power. Mm-hmm. I really feel like to step into our power, we've got to get to the edges of ourselves, and we've got to be willing to peer over the edge and say, I know I'm not done. Mm-hmm. And so a long time ago, I entertained this idea where I thought to myself, okay, well, what if there was nothing outside of my comfort zone? Like, what if I allowed myself to get to the edge, and every time I found myself with resistance or fear or doubt or worry, or some part of like logical, practical mind wanted me to stay where I was, or tell me to go do the dishes instead of making that phone call or recording that podcast or whatever it is. Don't ask me if I cleaned my house this morning. No, I'm just kidding. But every time I got into that practical mindset that tried to talk me out of something, I told myself I would get curious. And I told myself that I would try and lean into that to see if that edge could be expanded a little bit. And I know your word this year is expansive. Mm-hmm. And that to me is, you know, when we start challenging those edges and saying, well, what else am I capable of? I think we very quickly start to realize that we're capable of what we believe ourselves to be capable of, mm-hmm. not what anyone around us is telling us, and not what the world is dictating. Mm-hmm. We really have untapped potential inside.
Something I love that you said to me the last time we got together was, what does the next 5 years look like? You were specifically talking about a client journey, but I've been really mulling this over of like even the versions of ourselves, right? Like, what does 5 years look like from now? And leaning into that vision of ourselves and of the person that we're working with. And it makes it a little bit less scary to take that leap now, because now your mindset is 5 years in the future.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciated that, because that it almost took that like current scary, because it's like, okay, well, if I want this, I need to jump now.
Yeah, 100%. I think that when we start to put our vision way, way out there, like Bob Proctor talks about this with his A and B and C type goals. But he says, you know, imagine something that you have no idea how you can possibly achieve, and just lean into it, you know, in terms of putting it out there. Not, I think that I could maybe get it, but you just really dream bigger than you think that you can. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that it does is it allows us to aim much higher than practical reasoning and logic would allow us to go. And I used to, like, if you had asked me to describe myself, I would have said I'm very logical. And that was like a very nice personality trait that I put on every day. I was like, I am so logical, I'm practical, I think A, B, C, D, E, like I cross all my T's and dot all my I's. And at the end of the day, I am very logical, But I also believe that if we want illogical results in our lives, we have to think illogically, and we have to take illogical steps and actions. We have to be willing to do something that nobody else is doing. We have to be willing to ask of ourselves things that we have not yet asked if we want to grow into versions of ourselves that we have never been. And I think that this is something that when we have vision, when we think into the future, well, who knows what's possible? And so I love that you picked that up and that resonated with you.
Well, and I have an example of it. I don't have the results yet.
I love that. Go forth.
So part of this C level, so being in front of thousands of people, and one of the things I've said is I want to be paid $50,000 for a 1 hour keynote.
What? How could you ever ask that? I'm just so
Right?
kidding.
Right? I know.
Say that again. I want to affirm that for you.
I want to be paid $50,000 for a 1 hour keynote.
Love that.
I have no idea how I'm going to get there, but guess what? Guess what that's doing right now by having that vision in my mind?
I can guess, but I want you to say it.
Yeah. So I was recently at an event. It was about like learning to tell your story in a different way. And I actually have 2 of these recently, but I'll talk about this one. And I gave like a 4 or 5 minute talk, and I talked about this. And the coach, who knows me well, she came up to me after and she's like, well, Shelby, since you want to be paid $50,000 for a talk, I'm going to give you coaching that's going to push you there. So she didn't sugarcoat anything. And by putting that out there, I am leveling up in that because that's part of what happens to get there.
I love that so much. And I want to, for everybody who's listening, I just want them to really focus on, like, when we dream big, we start to change the frequency of what we're putting out into the universe. I talk to my clients about this a lot. Like, we have to be able to put out a frequency, a vibration that is magnetic for what it is that we would love. Like, if you were to show up as I'm paid $100 an hour as a speaker, and your secret dream is to be earning $50,000 for that hour, but you're putting out $100 an hour vibes, it's like the universe is never going to respond to that. And just as a side note here, I think a lot of people feel like when we talk about the universe responding, we feel like it's woo-woo stuff. But here's what I want to illuminate for people in terms of the actual psychology of this, is that we have a center in our brain called the reticular activating system. And a lot of coaches talk about it. And essentially what it is it's a filter. So if you were going out to buy a new car for yourself and you decided that you wanted to get a white RAV4, then you're going out there and you've told your mind that this is important. You've said, we're looking for white RAV4s. And all of a sudden, when you're out driving around, you're seeing a white RAV4 there and a white RAV4 there. The actuality is that white RAV4s didn't just appear out of nowhere. You didn't conjure them up. They were always there, but now you've told your brain that this is important. And so it's resourcing it for you. It's giving you all the information about white RAV4s that it can find. The reality is that when we start to focus on things like, I'm a $50,000 speaker, we start to resource for that information and we resource for those opportunities. Our subconscious has so much to give us that we don't even know that it's got in there. And so when you set your filter, you're tuning your filter for reality to give you specific information. That's how it works. So people often think manifestation is woo, 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 and like law of attraction, woo, woo, woo. And what I want to say is that law of vibration works on you directly and consciously telling your mind what's important. A lot of this stuff is already there and available. Most of us are focused on problems instead of solutions. Mm-hmm. So I'm really going on a segue here, but I hope that the relevance of this is really landing, because I think that when we start to see that we have the power to determine what's actually mattering in terms of what we're focusing on, like you've set a very specific target and you've cultivated a very specific lens for your brain to now filter reality. Your brain is a microprocessor. It is a computer, supercomputer. And so now you've told it what's important. Guess what? It's going to get back to you. So you are now attuning yourself towards that vibration, that frequency. Here it is. It's going to come to you now. And not because you're just sitting around doing nothing. You're speaking, you're training with coaches, you're doing the work. That's what's going to help to bring it in a lot faster. We can't just think it. We can't just feel it and emanate it. We have to act. We have to put something out into the world that it can respond to.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if I have this dream that's up here, but I'm living down here, there's a huge gap there.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not at that frequency.
Yeah, it's so much a frequency, a focusing of the mind. Like, we have to know what's important to us. We have to be focused on it, and we've got to be focused more on solution than problem. And I think a lot of times now we're focused on problems. We look around ourselves and we say, I've got a lot of things that are not quite where I want them to be, rather than saying, what could I be doing today that's in alignment with a $50,000 speaker? Like, how does $50,000 speaker Shelby? I'm really like punching this one, but like smacking. Well, now the universe knows.
Yes,
if they want to hire you, they know what to be charging.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so this other event that I was in, it was a little bit more honed in on speaking and feedback. Like, it was a very intense 3 days around this. And on the third day, I had done 2 different speaking things and received some intense feedback. And after, I was sitting there and I was ready to cry. And in my mind, I was like, okay, when I get home, I'm going to start looking for a job. This is clearly not for me. I need to go, I'll look on Indeed and I'll find myself a job.
Right.
So it happens in the process. And then as I sat with it, I was like, okay, Shelby, if you want to be paid $50,000 for a talk, or speaking in front of thousands of people, what needs to happen? You need some pretty tough feedback, because you don't know it all yet. Yeah. And I put myself into, okay, how would $50,000 a keynote Shelby respond to this? She would accept the feedback, filter it, because I still have the ability to decide if it works for me or not, and then make some changes and elevate and elevate and elevate. So I didn't quit.
There is so much I love about that. First of all, I'm glad you didn't quit. Thank you. But I feel like there's a couple of things I really want to hone in on there. One of them being that a lot of times when we get something that could be perceived as a failure, meaning like, oh, I got all this feedback and like it was constructive feedback and I need to do more. I think a lot of times when we have any perceived failure in our life, it's like our message to ourselves to close the book on that and run away. Because we have not grown into beings who are good with feedback and that receiving, even though we know it's growing us, when we perceive failure, it's like we instantly say, okay, not doing that anymore. Obviously, I'm not good at it. I should stop. Yeah. Whereas I just want to affirm for people that when we get these markers, like, it's also, this is my second point, these are really like the breakthrough moments to the next level. When we get to that really hard part where it's like, and I know this happened to me before one of my events where I was like, I should just give up. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, where did that thought come from? And it's honestly, I feel like along the path, whenever we're growing, whenever we're pursuing dreams and goals that we've clearly set, only 3% of people are actually setting goals. So let's just be clear that already people who set goals are asking of themselves things that most people don't. They're stepping into versions of themselves that most people leave on the table. I just want to say that. So you having something that you've put yourself towards there, you are actually going through a breakthrough moment where it's like also a turn back moment. So some people would get that feedback and say, this isn't for me and I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It's hard and I should quit. When the reality is that this is the moment to say, I'm committing. I'm truly committing to my dream and I'm committing to the next version of myself coming into being. And without that commitment, that next version of Shelby doesn't get born. She doesn't get to see the light of day. So I just want to acknowledge how much actually got wrapped into like such a pivotal moment in time. And I love the question that you asked yourself, an identity-based question, because I think a lot of times we don't say like, who does that version of me need to show up as or take that feedback as in this moment, when really like that's the filter that makes all the difference.
Because we don't know that future version of us yet. We only know the past version. And so it's easy in that moment to like, shrink down and be like, oh, that was scary. That was too much. Instead of being like, okay, this is I'm getting ready to level up, move to that next level in the video game.
I love this so much, and I feel like I could talk to you forever, so we're going to have you back. But is there any like last parting words or any inspiration that you want to share with our guests and the people who are listening to this, our audience?
Yeah, in light of this where this conversation has gone, is listen to that little part of yourself that's wanting to be heard. Listen to it, explore it, get curious about it. It can be really scary, and it can be absolutely amazing.
I love that so much. And for those of you out there who have enjoyed listening to hearing Shelby share some of her wisdom, she's not just the owner of All Set Style, but she also co-runs a business called Black Sheep Co. And we're going to put some of her information and details down in the comment section of this podcast so that you can find it. So you'll be in touch with her.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Krista.
Thanks for being here.